The introduction of completely new characters into the Generations line is a very rare event, with the last major occurrence that comes to my mind being Victorion in Combiner Wars, with her subsequent Megatronian repaints coming shortly after in Unite Warriors. And before that, we were introduced to Windblade and Centauratron in Thrilling 30. Perhaps I've missed a Micromaster or two along the way, but the point stands that new characters are a delicacy in Generations, which is why I was somewhat surprised to see not one, but 4 show up in Kingdom, barring repaints, of course. I'll have more to say about the gimmick when we get to the deluxes, but the Fossilizers, of whom today's review subject is only nominally a member, brought a fresh zest to our expectations of just Beast Wars again, and gave Kingdom a more unique identity. Welcome to Kit Reviews. My name is Kit, and today we'll be taking a look at Transformers Kingdom Core Class VERTEBREAK. This figure was released in 2020 as part of Wave 1 of the Core assortment. VERTEBREAK transforms into, well, what has been officially designated as a Dracorex, but if you write down Stygimoloch or Pachycephalosaurus on the pop quiz at the end of this video, I won't be taking off any points. Separating her from the likes of Megatron and Dinobot is the fact that she turns not into an actual Pachycephalosaur, but a fossilized Pachycephalosaur skeleton, if the Fossilizer's name didn't already tip you off. As such, VERTEBREAK is very monochromatic, primarily cast in a deep dark brown, with painted dark gray accents to really pull off the fossilized flair. While I'm not a paleontologist by any means, I have to say VERTEBREAK's skeletal structure looks fairly accurate to a genuine Pachycephalosaur. The biggest sin I've seen dinosaur transformers commit time and time again is placing the legs outside the body instead of directly underneath. Imagine literally every Generation 1 Dinobot. VERTEBREAK, thankfully, does not indulge in that lizard-hipped licentiousness. However, her arms aren't up to snuff, as the scapulae are placed much too low on her ribcage, though I acknowledge this was most likely done to make the sculpt work better through transformation. Also, I can't quite tell if her wrists are pronating or not. It's somewhat ambiguous. Otherwise, this is one dapper dinosaur. Her head is a flat affair, covered in nodules above, and featuring some supratemporal fenestrae and rear-facing horns at the back, which match Dracorex's holotype. So yeah, those holes on the top of her head are just there on the actual fossil. They're not meant to be connecting points or anything for transformation. Her jaw can be opened, showing a nice approximation of her many tiny leaf-shaped teeth. In addition to the jaw, her head can move up and down on a pin hinge, and her legs are articulated at a ball-jointed hip, a pinned knee, and a ball-jointed ankle. Sadly, the range in her joints isn't enough to get an iconic Pachycephalosaur charging pose, but it's still quite a few steps above that of Rat Trap. As novel as the idea of turning into a skeleton is, VERTEBREAK's transformation is not novel in the least. In fact, I suppose you could say her transformation is pretty basal. It's a standard stand her up and flip out the head affair, although the way the torso tumbles around, exchanging the Stygi skull for her own robot head, feels very dynamic as it's helped along by the opening spinal column and another rubbery flip-out panel. Her engineering doesn't rival the brilliance of Rat Trap's, but it gets the job done nonetheless. For a complete nobody with a pretty uninspired transformation, VERTEBREAK sure does pack a lot of personality. The vibe I get from her robot mode is some sort of tribal princess or rugged tomboy huntress. You know, the kind of girl some people on Twitter I could name would understandably drool all over. While it's helped by her earthy color scheme, it's really her head sculpt that seals the deal. She sports a hood that reminds me a lot of Generation 1 Dive Bomb, and her goggles make her look as if she's ready to stalk prey, which is ironic giving her herbivorous alternate mode. I guess you don't worry about things like dietary restrictions when you're already dead. That bony cloth she's cut from naturally lends itself to a very lithe and skinny robot mode, with most of her bulk unintentionally coming from the hinges needed to make her transformation viable. Her only real kibble are the jazz hands sticking up from her shoulders. Otherwise, she's pretty bare bones. Her rubbery chestplate is the only true sign that she's actually some sort of robot. It features the one and only splash of silver, that isn't on her face, as well as a minuscule Predacon insignia. I think it does just enough to break up the otherwise unbroken sea of mineralized mahogany. VERTEBREAK's sole accessory is a tail club, or tail whip, or tail sword, or tail what have you. It's her tail, and now it's a weapon. Sadly, it sticks too far downwards for it to stay in place through transformation. It's also made of a rubbery plastic, which the wiki says is made of the same stuff as the War for Cybertron blast effects, so be careful. VERTEBREAK only features 11 points of dedicated articulation, which may sound like a raw deal, but really isn't. The vast majority, that is, everything except for the knees, are ball joints, making her a bendier bot than the technical spreadsheet would suggest. While her head is somewhat limited on its ball joint, the platform on which it sits is on a transformation hinge that isn't fixed, meaning you can get some potentially unintentional high looks. Her ball-jointed elbows have a nearly double-jointed range, allowing her to shrug pretty easily. Everything else is stuff we've already covered in Beast Mode, though these joints have far more posing potential here. I'm never not going to enjoy ankle tilts on a $10 toy. VERTEBREAK may not smash my expectations like Rat Trap did, but she keeps close enough to make it seem like the designers at Hasbro weren't throwing all their eggs in one basket when it came to the core class. She is a very serviceable figure with a unique alternate mode, being the first Pachycephalosaur transformer that isn't just a retrofitted theropod. Her transformation is pretty middling, but there was clear effort to spice things up at least a little, and her robot mode punches above its weight in terms of presence and personality. She's a spunky little minx who is definitely deserving of praise. Consider myself smitten, as I think she's just lovely. If you liked this video or otherwise found it helpful or informative, then please subscribe for more reviews like this in the future, and feel free to suggest topics for future reviews in the comments. When we return, we'll be taking a look at a figure which someone in the comments has been a little too impatient to see me talk about. You know who you are. This has been Kit Katastrophe. Transform and roll out.